Tom, I feel like I saw my article today that I wanted to bring to you for this particular cold open. I thought this is something that you are going to relate to, and I don't mean in a weird, dirty way.
For once. Okay.
This is, I want to talk to you about some new research. This comes out of Cambridge, University of Cambridge.
I know Cambridge.
It's across the pond, that talks about the value of being a mentor.
Oh, okay.
What do you think about that? Now, you are a mentor. Can you talk just briefly about what you do in your sort of chosen mentorship?
Mentoring. Yes. It's a program called the Young Storytellers Foundation. It's across California, Southern California. And basically, I'm a head mentor, so I oversee 10 to 15 mentors who oversee 10 to 15 young storytellers. They are fifth graders. And together...
Also sounds weirdly like a multi-level marketing kind of a scam.
It is. I get a little bit of residuals from all of it.
You get a set of knives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We all have an alley rally, and I give them a little pep squeak. But over 2 months, they, together with all of the words actually coming from the child, the young storyteller, they write an original 5-page screenplay that is then ultimately acted out on stage by working actors in front of the school, family, and friends. So I guess it's sort of a creative writing literacy program, and I'm in charge of a school, and I love it.
Well, that's what I want to hear about. Tell me what that love looks like. What does it do for you to do that work?
Especially in the school that I'm at now, it's incredible. I was just started there last semester. This is a new school. And to see these children open up, because at first it's just a bunch of weird adults in a room clapping and wanting to be friends. And they're like, nope. Like they all want to group in the corner and, look at their phones or whatever. And then week by week, they just open up and they really start to look forward to it. And you can see some of the shyest kids around really find a voice and really, it really seems to make an impact for them. And a lot of them, because I stay at schools for a long time, I get their little brothers and little sisters who come up and say that their older brother, older sisters are still writing, that it really has turned a corner for them. So it's the Young Storytellers Foundation, and it's just wonderful.
I love it that you are actually mentoring yourself out of a job.
What do you mean? Oh, because I'm a screenwriter,
right? Yeah, right.
Oh,
that's fantastic.
I steal all their ideas, Pete.
Well, this is interesting research because, as you can imagine, when you think about the mentor-mentee relationship, the reason we have a mentor-mentee relationship is to generally ease transitions for mentees, right? You have a mentor when you go to school, when you start a new job. Smart organizations pair you with a mentor. It's all to reduce your anxiety as a mentee, as a new kid, as somebody who's trying something new. It's good to have a mentor that you can ask questions, right? And in this case, Cambridge, they were looking at statistics. In England alone, mental illness accounts for an annual expenditure on health care of £14 billion and reduction in gross domestic product of £52 billion, owing to people that are unable to work to their full capacity, says this particular work out of Cambridge. And so they're trying to help grease the skids, if you will, for people to be able to achieve their full capacity. Well, the research says, all of that aside, that it turns out the act of being a mentor reduces anxiety and improves mental health of mentors themselves in high-pressure occupations, says this new study out of the Cambridge Judge Business School that involves the English police force.
Oh.
Right? Fascinating. This is what I mean when I talk about high-pressure occupations.
Sure.
People who, when you become a mentor, and this is why policing was chosen as this setting to study how mentoring can reduce anxiety.
Bobbies.
Yes, bobbies. They don't appreciate that anymore.
Okay.
I actually don't know. I just want to make you feel bad. Including the medical profession and the military. These roles that require, feats of intellectual, mental, emotional strength, right?
Okay.
That's what they're doing. And so they found, in fact, that all of these roles, we suggested strongly that mentoring, encouraging people, experienced people, to become mentors reduces anxieties. It gives them a chance to explore their relationship with their profession in a way that is healthy, in a way that is productive. And I find that just wonderful.
That's great. Why is that, do you think? Is it because you're having to see sort of through someone's eyes? You're sort of being an audience surrogate for a new person joining your workforce?
I'm so glad you said that, Tommy, because I would like to, using my voice, speak on behalf of the study.
Oh.
Quote, mentoring provided reassurance to the mentors by illuminating how other, often junior officers, also experiencing anxiety, thereby normalizing their own experiences. By acknowledging that anxieties are common, both the mentees and mentors in this study appeared to be more comfortable discussing such issues and therefore in developing different coping mechanisms.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I love that,
Bobby.
Especially for police force. I mean, when I think about all the TV shows I've seen of American cop trainees, they're always called boots and they always seem to be treated terribly. Like the hazing seems terrible and terrifying. And so the idea of having someone to talk to, having someone to sort of proverbially hold your hand through that process seems like that could really open up a new kind of understanding. I think that's wonderful.
I think it is too. And you know what? It's such a big deal that not only did this study come out of, or I should say was published by the folks at Cambridge, it was co-authored by the folks at the said business school at Oxford University and Chief Inspector Stephen Carriage of the Cambridgeshire Constabulary. The Constabulary, Tom.
That sounds amazing. I want to be a constabulary. Just by myself, a one-person constabulary.
You'll always be a constable to me. Welcome to What's That Smell, a sometimes funny podcast about humans and their anxieties. I'm Pete Bright.
And I'm Tommy Metz III.
And every week we each drag one of our deepest, darkest anxieties into the light to share it, learn about it,
and hopefully laugh about it with all of you. Reach out to us. We want to hear the story of your anxieties. Please email us at somethingstinky@whatsthatsmell.net. Again, somethingstinky@whatsthatsmell.net. Yes, that's a choice we made. And with that, I, Pete, will go first.
You're such a jerk.
I'm never letting it go. Because you did it to annoy me, so I have to bring it up. I have to let you know that wound is still fresh. Pita, it's an idea that's used in books all the time or in TV, but I want to ask you if you have any personal experience with it. Have you ever felt like you were being watched?
Well, I didn't.
And I'm behind you. No. Have you ever had that feeling? Like sometimes people, you have had that feeling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What does it feel like?
Okay, so there is both an emotional and a physiological response for me. The first is, and it comes in places that are environmentally sort of challenging for me, right? Either it's dark, I can't see, like a dark parking garage or something, or where sound is compromised. Again, parking garage, there's echoes and things, you can't quite place sounds.
A lot of time in parking garages, it sounds like.
I spend an inordinate amount of time walking parking garages. And so I feel like anytime my senses are compromised, I get a feeling that I'm being somehow surveyed, and it is literally, I feel it, the tingling on the back of my neck, and right at the base of my skull.
Yeah. That's how because I have never had that feeling. I always kind of thought that it only really existed in movies or books, but I've been asking around.
I feel like you're setting me up. No, I really do.
No, I'm not.
I feel like this was a setup. You got me to say something, and then, I don't have that.
I do not have. No, but you were not alone. I've just been, as a side note, been asking people all week about that because I had that idea to start this anxiety, and I am the weird one. The fact that I have no idea what that feels like. I've just never felt that way. Anyways,
wow.
That's sort of a clumsy lead-in to a listener submission this week, Pete.
Not clumsy at all. Tom, you're an expert at this.
Thank you. In this submission, the listener indicated that she or he would like to go by the name of Chrissy. So that's how we will be addressing this person. Chrissy wrote, I think it's a possibility that I have moments of experiencing ideas of reference and on a much larger scale, and sometimes believe that there are too many people in the world who have professions we don't know of. So then why wouldn't there be agents or agencies designed to control or monitor segments of the population to help control the order of things? Maybe it's due to my watching too much Blacklist or spy movies over the years. He sums up again, I sometimes wonder if I and the general populace at large am being monitored and guided through suggestion and or subtle manipulation. It's more of a subconscious type of existential anxiety and not crippling, but it's something I find interesting and perhaps relatable. End quote. Ooh, right?
Oh,
this is an interesting one.
Man.
First and foremost, thank you so much for writing in, Chrissy. We appreciate it. And I would like to say that this anxiety has a lot to unpack, so I promise nothing. I say we just dive in and let's see what we come up with. Fair enough, Pete?
Let's do it.
Okay. So while the idea of being watched and manipulated by outside forces isn't new to me, the term idea of reference was. Have you ever heard of that before?
No, that's totally new to me too.
Right. So I looked it up. Basically, most people tend to believe other people think about them more than they actually do. But ideas of reference are variations on this behavior and occur when a person believes something is referring to them when it's not. In other words, like in WikiSpeak, innocuous or coincidental events are taken to have a strong personal significance. As a side note, it is closely related to delusion of reference. That's pretty much the same thing, but the subject refuses to believe otherwise when presented with clear evidence. Against that fact, that's where you start getting out to start paranoia and potentially schizophrenia. I do not believe that idea of reference is what Chrissy is talking about. An example given of an idea of reference that I found on one website is a person shopping in a store might see two strangers laughing and believe that they're laughing at him or her, when in reality, those two people don't even notice the person. That doesn't sound like what Chrissy is talking about. What Chrissy's talking about is way deeper and sounds more like a secret government agency looking to control him in secret ways. Do you agree with that?
Well, I guess, but aren't they kind of the same thing?
One has the idea of reference is wrong, meaning that you think that people are talking about you, but they're not. What Chris is talking about is there are forces out there that are doing it, but hiding their attempts.
Okay.
So I think that's the big difference. I do not know the term for what I think Chrissy's talking about, but I know it gets us into conspiracy theories. And so, Pete, I spent part of my week going down the rabbit hole of government mind control conspiracy theories on the internet. And for an egg,
I'm so sorry. Oh my God. I'm surprised you even showed up today.
Yeah, that was time really well spent. I have tinfoil hats for my tinfoil hat. Anyways, here's some stuff that I came up with. Is the U.S. government definitely has a history of involving unwitting civilians in secret programs. Unfortunately, they've done it quite a lot. One of the most famous involving mind control was Project MK Ultra. Are you familiar with this?
MK Ultra. It's like everything you're saying is nonsense to me. I don't know any of these words.
Project MK Ultra. If you look that up on the internet, your internet will explode. It was led by Dr. Ewan between 1957 and 1964 to look into methods of influencing and controlling the mind and extracting information from resisting brains. He would administer ECT therapy, shock therapy at 30 to 40 times the normal power. He would put patients into drug-induced comas for months on end, while playing tapes of simple statements or repetitive noises over and over again. A lot of his patients, quote unquote patients, forgot how to talk, forgot who their parents were, and suffered serious amnesia. As a side note, all of this was performed on Canadian citizens because the CIA wasn't willing to risk such operations on Americans. USA!
You're a kid. Is this legit?
No, this is legit. You can look this. I mean, I took a look.
You can look this. Finish that sentence. You can look it up.
You can look it up. But I mean, this has been released by the CIA that MK Ultra was a thing. Pete, how are you feeling so far?
I under my own desk.
I know. Okay. So then I started getting into the power of conspiracy theories. And in 2015, Dr. Sander van Linden wrote a article called The Surprising Power of Conspiracy Theories. In his article, he writes that the interesting thing about conspiracy theories is that they start out with a need to confirm a particular premise, like someone or some evil thing must be responsible. And this is what psychologists refer to as a fundamental attribution error, the tendency to overestimate the actions of others as being intentional rather than just simply the product of random situational circumstances. And of course, this speaks to the comfort that you can get in conspiracy theories, that people are uncomfortable with the notion of randomness because it lacks meaning. The only thing randomness communicates is an uncertainty and a lack of agency and control over what is happening in the world. Therefore, it is easier and more comforting, ironically, to simply point our finger at someone or something. Therefore, conspiracy theories serve an important role. They restore a false sense of certainty and control. As a side note, are you a conspiracy theorist at all? Do you have some tinfoil hat stuff that you believe in?
I am not one, I think, that is not able to be swayed, right? Like I am somebody who, if you present to me data, facts, reportage, I'm capable of changing my mind. Let's say that.
Yes, that is a huge difference. That's what separates you from conspiracy theorists, in effect.
But, and so I like to tell myself, yeah, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, or I don't believe that there are people out there genuinely doing me evil. And then you read about the Flint water crisis.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like these, and I'm getting increasingly involved in our own local political sphere, and I'm constantly surprised at the kinds of conversations that I'm having about which I would know nothing if I hadn't chosen to open that particular door and, introduce myself to that area. And so I find that fascinating. But, I digress from your horrific point about Dr. Strangelove, was it?
So do you see how you can get comfort, how some people, if not you, could get comfort from a conspiracy theory?
Totally. And how many times can we catalog that, we bring comfort to ourselves, even when the choice is discomfort, even when the solution is the belief system equates to discomfort. Having a belief system is a sense of comfort and certainty.
I think this kind of suggestion and subtle movement is actually hiding in plain sight. And I think we can see it through marketing, and we can see it through politicians all the time. I found in the magazine Money an article called The Science of How Marketers and Politicians Manipulate Us in Everyday Life. And they actually broke it down to a number of different ways. There were three that I liked the most. Number one is black and white choices. Our minds are most comfortable with the simplicity of binary thinking. It's A or B. Even when the situation involved is actually very complex, that makes us a little uncomfortable. And so marketing or politicians will always sort of, through labeling, overgeneralizing, and meaningless platitudes, they achieve a distortion to make you think that if you just go for brand X, then you are completely solving all your problems. Another one is emotions. I like this one, that they create narratives around products that we can grasp quickly at a simple emotional level. Politicians do the same thing. This is my favorite. When politicians come out to give a big speech and they always point at someone in the audience and give a thumbs up. Mm-hmm. They're not pointing at anyone. I don't believe that they know anyone in that audience. They're just connecting. They're saying, oh, I know you because I'm a real person. The same way that this drives me nuts. In speeches, they will single out one family or one person and tell their anecdotal story in order to manipulate us into using emotional rather than logical reasoning. They can make us feel that our feelings represent a larger truth by just pointing out one person or one anecdotal situation. And the last one was subconscious influences that I wanted to bring up. These hidden messages are like mental shortcuts. I found an example of this. Have you ever heard of group consensus?
This I do know a thing or two about.
Do you? Yeah. It's if the same person says something three times in a meeting, it has the effect of group consensus. Repetition is powerful. If you hear something three times, all of a sudden it gains truth. It is no longer taken as an anecdote. It is taken as fact. And that's why politicians work so hard to stay on message, and advertisers show the same commercials over and over and over again.
That's right.
So these are just ways that in plain view, we are being manipulated, like Chrissy was worried about, guided through suggestion and or subtle manipulation. And I thought that that's another way of looking at it, that we don't need a shadow government with a bunch of briefcases and sunglasses. I don't know if that's what the shadow government wears, but that it's happening to us all the time. And I think it's so pervasive, it's probably really, really hard to try to get out from it.
I sort of felt like you were going to say we don't need another shadow government.
Good point.
We already have one.
Yeah.
I don't need multiple personalities. Two's enough, kind of a thing.
Right.
This is A, not very funny. B, you didn't help Chrissy at all.
No.
I don't think.
No, I did not.
Hey, let me take on your anxiety and talk about how funny it is, because it's not that bad, except for it is that bad. And we are actually all pod people.
Yeah.
And we're being raised by the Matrix.
Pete, I didn't get into the Illuminati, and I've got pages and pages on the Illuminati. I am on so many watch lists right now. I think my dog is bugged. I am going down fast and hard. So sorry, Chrissy.
It's a good time to have a good time. So feel the beat down in your bones and smile.
Tom, my first experience with a tutor was when my parents thought that it was a great idea for me to learn German.
Ah, okay.
My grandmother lived for a time in Austria and had taken 3 of her kids there, not including my mother, who she'd already moved out by that point. So my grandmother and 3 of her 6 kids moved to Austria, and there they attended Austrian schools and came home speaking German. And I think as a result, my mother wanted to make sure that her family wasn't left out. So I ended up in private German lessons for, as far as I can remember, all of my life. And this was in Colorado Springs. By the way, so opportunities to stand up and practice your German.
Not a lot. Yeah.
No. And as a result, today, Tom, I don't speak German.
Oh, you lost it?
Well, yeah.
How conversational were you at your highest?
Oh, not really. And I think there are a few reasons that this is the case. I don't now, and I didn't believe in my core that I would ever actually need German. Right. So on the shortest time horizon, I wasn't being graded on it. And on a longer time horizon, I had no plans to move to Germany when I was 8. So I never really thought I would use it. That was just not a thing that was in my, future. Now, the other thing is I was actually pretty good at it, right? I have a pretty solid ear. So I was able to sound German even when I had literally no idea what I was saying, right?
Yeah.
Like there's some benefit to that. It got me kind of into theater and that was useful. Mm-hmm. But I really, I didn't speak German. And I should say clearly, I do not have an anxiety about the German language, German people, or the study of German and things that are German.
Good, because that would just be racist. And that's a completely different podcast.
On the contrary, I give my study of German no thought whatsoever.
Okay.
And I do, however, have an anxiety about another subject, one that is decidedly more likely to be studied in the formative years of our youth. And far beyond. And that brings me to the second time in my young academic career that I was fortunate enough to engage the services of a tutor. I am talking about, Tom, mathemophobia.
All right. Yep.
Yeah, no, it sounds like that sounds like your equivalent of a hallelujah.
Absolutely. I had a tutor growing up because I was so averse to math, and I still am terrible at fractions to this day. I remember there's a story that my parents tell that when I was very young, I was having trouble with fractions, and they said, what would you rather have, 1/3 of a pie or 1/4 of a pie? I answered wrong. And apparently at a very young age, I said, well, that's just because I don't like pie. Clever stuff. Classic maths.
And you have never had pie since
No.
because anxiety.
Exactly.
This is, we're talking about the fear, which in my case, and sounds like yours too, led to a straight up detestation of the study of mathematics and eventually anxiety around performance of mathematical functions entirely. That was me. So what does that look like? This anxiety around math. And as it turns out, this is a function of working memory, usually, when it comes to math. And working memory, it's your ability to keep a process running in your head and hold on to it as you build on with new information. And math, along with, escape rooms, requires a lot in terms of working memory. Now, a little bit of a side note, as I was making a few notes for this, I got to this point in my notes and I started trying to compare working memory to a watermelon keg. And I wrote nearly a full page of how a watermelon keg is like working memory with rum and coconut rum, pineapple juice, and you scrape all this stuff out. And I got to the end and I realized I don't even know what this is a metaphor for anymore.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It makes no sense at all. I had no idea what I was talking about. And I actually am telling you this story because these are the depths to which my math anxiety takes me.
Sure.
I can't even talk about the anxiety of math without completely derailing to talk about watermelon kegs. This is what I mean by working memory getting polluted.
Right.
Mine gets polluted with watermelon kegs.
Yeah.
Yours probably other things.
Yep.
It just gets filled up with anxious thoughts and anger and fear and judgment and doubt. And your working memory can't do the job it's supposed to do, which is to figure out how much damn pie you want to eat. And it's enormously frustrating.
I definitely relate to all of this. Yes. In college, I took I was a humanities major with a split in English and film. And I had to take a math class and it was called QRMS, Quantitative Reasoning and Math Studies.
Oh God, I don't like even thinking about that.
No, because it was math for people that don't understand numbers. It was the dumbest thing I've ever done. And I think they taught me addition over a semester. I think they were like, fine, go to your Kant or whatever, humanities weirdo. And then I never went back. Yeah.
You are not alone. And this is where I bring in our friend Paul McCreary, who teaches at Evergreen State College's Tacoma program in Washington State. He's a faculty member, and he actually assigns a mini memoir for new students in his math classes. And he asks them just to say, what is your experience with math? What is your life, your academic career with math? How do you feel about it? And he says, on average, in a class of 25 students, 23 will enter not liking math. Mm-hmm. And that, as this article on npr.org had to actually calculate for me, is 92% if you're keeping track at home. And then they say, as if they know I'm reading it, quote, in other words, that's a lot, end quote. Thank you, npr.org. Here we go. Mr. McCreary says, in the memoirs I find, I loved it until 6th grade. And after that, Mr. Hanricon made it impossible. So they remember the name of the individual, and sometimes they describe the day it happened, that turning point where their interest and love of math fell away.
Ooh.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Some of it, when you start going down this, the research on this, you come across this term stereotype threat.
Okay.
Can you imagine what that means? Have you heard of it?
No. I'm out of context. Maybe I can figure it out, but go ahead.
I almost want you to, out of context, try to figure it out. I'm going to throw you a bone here and tell you that it's the belief that there are people who can do math and those who can't.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. And there's a stereotype around those who can. And I am totally destroying the concept when I talk about this because it's generally applied to genders, right? Saying that only boys can do math. Right. And after a certain point, engineering, sciences, STEM classes, they're for the boys. And it's led to a massive disparity between men and women in the West. In particular, we miss generations of opportunity to create a culture that nourished excitement in math and science in young women, and we'll be working to undo this mess for generations to come. Hallelujah. That's out of the way. I get it. It's terrible. That said, I have a distinct memory of being so wildly outpaced in math by the Asian and South Asian kids, boys and girls, that I effectively dropped out of math between the 6th and 8th grades. Now, I'm not saying that to be racist. I'm saying that demonstrates that at some level I am racist. We're going to come back to that in a minute. I promise. But for now, just know that my memory is that these are the kids who trounced me around every corner. And I was, even though they did not intentionally do this, I left elementary school embarrassed. And I barely passed the work itself. And I positively excelled at feeling crappy about it all the time.
Oh, so you were a winner. You were first in that race. When you said that it was a lot of gender situation involved, I remember that Mattel got in a lot of trouble years ago when they would have a talking Barbie, and one of pre-programmed phrases was "math is hard." Oh, Mattel. There's so many phrases.
Oh, what was it? Did she sing that song? This is much too hard for me. I can't do this sum. Right. I mean, it was those kinds of things I remember in kind of it was terrible.
Yeah.
I have to bring up this barely passing thing. Right. So I passed. I got through it, but it was not an enjoyable experience and I hated it. But it turns out that I'm not alone and that it comes in the generally accepted culture of suck in math education.
Oh.
And I was very surprised by the following.
Okay.
It turns out a lot of math teachers suck. You know the old saying that those who can't do teach?
Yep.
Yeah, I hate that saying.
Yes, it's terrible.
If you teach, it's terrible. As it turns out, a lot of math teachers do suck.
Oh.
And this comes from John Taylor Gatto, who wrote in his book, An Underground History of American Education, quote, typical examples of areas where mathematics teachers are often incompetent or semi-competent include, fractions, long division, algebra, geometry, calculus, topology.
Oh, I like that one.
In many countries, would-be math teachers are required only to obtain passing grades of 51% in mathematics exams, so that a math student who has failed to understand 49% of the math syllabus throughout his or her education can, and often does, become a math teacher.
Oh, no. Wait.
His or her fears and lack of understanding pass naturally to his or her students.
Why would you
think about that?
Pick what? Wait, how?
I don't know.
Why would you become a math teacher?
That seems like the worst thing to do with your life. Why would you do that? But here we are at a place where, maybe if you only understood 51% of the math, you don't realize that you could make more money elsewhere.
Oh, man. Okay.
It's sad. It's really, really sad. I'm not sure how that happens, but it is what we're working with. It is the foundation of American education and our impression of American education in mathematics. But it turns out we're also, according to contemporary research, we're also doing it wrong in how we teach, not just who we ask to teach. And creating this sort of culture around math as a right or wrong thing and not as an exercise in understanding the processes that underlie mathematics is what is really damaging. And so I'd like to go back to the Asian kids, if I may, in a desperate attempt to stamp out that horrific generalization I made as a fifth grader. I did make that generalization because that's what we were taught. Right? I'm not alone. Tell me you have heard this before.
Yes, that traditionally some of those cultures are better at math. Yes.
Better at math. They teach math better. These are the things that we're kind of indoctrinated. Oh, you're lousy at math? Well, all those Chinese kids are going to outdo you as engineers, right? That's kind of that was the stereotype that we grew up with in the 80s,
Yes, that was very much a threat that was used. I remember that reports would always come out that Americans are being outdistanced in math all the time. And as a result, the world's going to collapse. Right.
So this common belief, right, that says, that there are entire cultures that are just better at math. There's something to it. But in this case, we have generations of kids who were taught to explain or who were taught mathematics in a way that is zero sum. And that in these cultures, these Asian cultures, they have adopted a different way of thinking, of conceptualizing math. And the kids in these communities understand math differently than we do. So I found this bit on mindset, right? And it's all about how we approach thinking about mathematics and the work that goes into learning mathematics. And so we might compare, students in the West with students in the East and Southeast Asia and decide that they're just naturally better at math or they appreciate math better and that everything else is equal. It turns out that is not necessarily the case. And research from Carol Dweck in her book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, the way those countries that are typically stereotyped as being better at math, that they don't have such a fascination with the right or wrong binary sort of approach to mathematics education. Instead, they place more emphasis on effort than one's innate intellectual ability in school success, right? And so parents that place a higher emphasis on effort, on sitting down and practicing, on just trying to understand process, are actually helping children develop what Dweck is calling this growth mindset. And as soon as you have a growth mindset that, and she says, everyone has the ability to grow their intellectual ability, to learn from mistakes, to become more resilient learners, again, according to Dweck, that you actually are teaching yourself to learn and thus helping to erase the anxiety that comes with your belief that you can't learn.
Right. Okay, well, first, I enjoy hearing you say Dweck over and over again. And second,
I could do that a lot. She's fascinating.
Is it basically, so we're like 2 + 2 is 5, right? Wrong. I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Versus,
exactly.
Well, you were close. Because my initial thought was, but it's math. There's no wiggle room.
But instead of saying 2 + 2 is 5, you're wrong. You say 2 + 2 is 5. Is it? Let's get these 4 apples, and here's 2 of them, and here's 2 of them, and let's understand why the symbol of these 4 apples, when we bundle them together, equals the word 5. What does that mean to us? How do we internalize that experience? And
sure.
And how do we create new examples? One of the things that we know engages kids, young kids, old kids, all kinds of kids, is that to engage their ability to learn, you have to engage their ability to be creative. You have to engage their ability to turn on that creative mood to learning. And that's something we don't traditionally do in we didn't do in mathematics education. Now, we've gone way off the bend from my anxiety in particular, which came from, oh my God, I hate feeling like this social pressure around math, and I put a face on it. But it turns out that's not true. That's not a real thing. And it turns out it was exactly the kind of thing a dumb 5th grader would believe. And the reality is that we have a different way of thinking about mathematics. So how do you get through it if you deal with math anxiety? Because right now I still deal with it. And I had to go through, I studied a lot of psychology in undergrad, and I had to get through statistics, and I had to figure out how to do study. And I was paralyzed when it came to the numbers parts. I'm paralyzed by dinner receipts.
That is probably my dad taught me an easy way to do 20%. And that's one of the reasons it's not even just out of the goodness of my heart. I only always tip 20% because I know how to do that math. And that is like locked in a concrete thing in my head. It doesn't go, but if you can figure that out, then you can figure out percentages of all.
No, I hate that.
Nope, 20%. Nope, 20%, 20%. Gotta go. Yeah.
That is absolutely true. And that is for me too. And the greatest thing that has happened to buying things is Stripe and what are the service, the service, you go up to a food truck and they have an iPad there,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And you turn it around, you give them your card, you turn it around, and they always have the pre-calculated tips. Are you going to get 5% or 10% or 20% or other?
Yeah.
I just always hit 20%. It's calculated. I don't even know the number. I don't care.
Yep.
It just is what it is. And what savage would choose other and have to calculate it himself? That's nuts.
What math savage.
Anyway, it turns out, here's the thing. I learned that there's a thing called math and statistics therapy. Did you know that?
No. Interesting.
It turns out there are very special unicorn people in the world that are experts in and credentialed in both counseling and mathematics education. And they teach you math by teaching you why you have the anxieties that you have, or addressing the anxieties you have in math. And as you get through learning to cope, with math or with your anxiety, you actually walk out better at math. That is such a cool therapy.
Wow.
I would like to do it and like become bionic, because at this point in my life, I'm sort of done with math.
Sure. You're just
That's not
pressing
true.
whatever says 20% all around you.
Whatever's this way. But I thought that was absolutely fantastic. So it turns out that there are some ways to get through the other side of this sort of mathematics anxiety, and to turn off the experience of fear that comes with your experience with numbers. You don't have to live that way. And there are all kinds of ways to expose yourself to these building blocks. I always imagined it in my own experience that I went through the kind of I hit the 5th or 6th grade, and I had this sort of brick wall of math with some bricks missing, that we still moved through other concepts, but there were these big holes, and eventually the whole thing comes toppling down, and because I didn't have the skills that I needed to actually, create a strong foundation.
Yeah.
But we live in an era where you can avail yourself to these things. When it came time to have to help my kids with their math, I try not to do it because my wife is exceptional in math.
Okay.
But I would sit down and go through the Khan Academy material. If you haven't played with Khan Academy, the way they teach math there is, I think, the way we're talking about teaching math, to look at process and effort and practice, and not just you were wrong, you're a failure, but to really understand how the numbers work together. And I find that fascinating. So I think there's a lot of hope. I don't live it's not paralyzing to me to this day, but I also don't live or don't work in a field where I have to stand up in front of a whiteboard and demonstrate my mathematical thinking.
Sure.
And I am very lucky, because then we'd be having a different conversation.
Wait a minute. Hold on. What's Khan Academy? Khan Academy?
Khan, Khan, Khan Academy, KHAN Academy.org.
Khan Academy.
If you want, you'll have to come down here to KhanAcademy.org. KhanAcademy.org is an open source education curriculum, and it's the history of it is fascinating if you want to learn about Khan himself, and it's not the wrath of it. It's a genuine story about a guy who wanted to create a place where you could learn. And so he started putting up mathematics videos on YouTube and creating a channel around, around helping through mathematical concepts. And so you go to KhanAcademy.org and you can click on, say, mathematics, and you say, I want to learn about fractions today. And you click on the fractions lesson, and that takes you to a set of videos that are, built into this incredible interface, but they're all hosted on YouTube. And so they're open to everybody. And he's built this grade level appropriate and incredibly well connected, or aligned to, Common Core, for example, or aligned to, local education and federal education standards. These videos that can help you get your head around what you're trying to learn. And anybody can do it. It is completely open. You don't have to pay. You can donate if you can afford it to keep the thing running. It's like the Wikipedia, but for learning stuff.
It's funny. I'm on the website right now and I'm looking at math. And I'm feeling anxiety, even though the website seems so intuitive. I haven't actually clicked on anything, but arithmetic, pre-calculus, AP calculus, differential equations. Ugh, I don't know what those are.
Don't start there.
Don't start there.
For the love of everything, don't start there. Up next for you, Tom, addition and subtraction.
That sounds great. I'm going to need to get some apples. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/scent of a podcast. Over 188,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Okay, I have this book.
Oh.
And I have to tell you the truth. I have not read it yet, but
you don't know how to read.
Excuse.
Oh, okay.
I only know how to Audible. And that's why I go to audible.com audibletrial.com/sent of a podcast. No, that's not the story. The story is I saw the author and illustrator, the author, comma, and the illustrator. They're two separate people at a conference, and they are incredibly fantastic. And everything about this book is exactly what I want to read. So as we record this, it's on pre-order, but it's coming. And by the time you hear it, it should be released. The book is How to Invent Everything, a survival guide for the stranded time traveler by Ryan North, illustrated by Lucy Bellwood. And what is so great about it, the way he pitched this book at the conference was, I wanted to write the most dangerous book ever written. And so I went out and cataloged all of the things that humanity could have invented earlier if we had only known how to put the pieces together. Like, we had all the pieces and we didn't know how to put them together. And as such, we delayed development for many thousands of years that we could have just... And here's an example. We started sewing buttons onto our clothes as fashion accessories like 1,200 years before we figured out how to actually close our clothes with buttons by adding a slit to the other side. Think about that.
We just had buttons?
We just had buttons as like brooches and didn't figure out that we could actually make shirts. This book is so clever. I mean, they even talk about how much earlier we could have built the internal combustion engine. Ryan North and his illustrator, Lucy Bellwood. You should definitely check out this book, How to Invent Everything, a survival guide for the stranded time traveler. By the time you hear this, it will be available at audibletrial.com/sent of a podcast.
And remember, we do not pay to advertise this show, so please share it with others that you think would be interested. 5-star reviews in iTunes and Apple Podcasts are amazing, or just put it on your Facebook, anything. Show other people that you have this show that you like, and maybe they'd like it too. So thank you very much.
Coming up next week, this is why we do this show. Please begin. I've taken off my shoes.
I'm nowhere near smart enough to be able to cook books, nor do I have books.
Hey, everybody, this is my brother Lloyd, and this is Lloyd's little Peter. And so I was...
Classic Glenn! All right, Pete's out, everybody. So now it's my time. Okay. Well, first, we're changing something stinky to what's that smell and what's that smell? Number 2. This week's tune has been Your Favorite Song by Katrina Stone. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm Tommy Metz III.
And I'm Pete Wright. We'll be back next week on What's That Smell? All right, stop recording before we say anything else stupid.